UFC 314's this weekend, and it's honestly one of the best cards we've had in a while. Probably the best pay-per-view in 2025 so far. Absolutely stacked to the gills. So many high-stakes matchups. The main event is going to be really interesting. We have Alexander Volkanovski taking on a surging Diego Lopes, but I'm here to tell you that Alexander Volkanovski is not losing. Volk cannot lose this fight. It's not going to happen. I'm going to go into the X's and O's, and then after I break down the main event, we'll go over some of the other fights on the card too. If you're here for my predictions last week for the Emmett fight card, which I went 5 for 6 on, this one's specifically for you. You specifically, Millennium 00. I got you. First, I want to get Volk's biggest disadvantage out the way. Volk's up there in age. 35 is kind of the expiration date on these guys, 155 and below. And Volk's a year past that at 36. On top of that, Volk is coming off 2 knockout losses in a row. And you're going to hear me contradict myself later on in the video. I might not pick someone because of their age, but here's why I think it's not necessarily as big of a deal for Volk. First of all, he's taken over a year off since he last got knocked out by Ilia Topuria. On top of that, Volk's not necessarily washed by any means. He beat Ilia in that first round of their fight. And as far as the Islam fight goes, he was short notice, no training camp, pretty out of shape. That was just, everything was stacked against him. It was in Abu Dhabi. That was just not his night, to be honest. I'm not saying Islam doesn't deserve credit. He 100% does, but let's just call it what it is. That was not even anywhere near peak Volk. That was a Volk coming off the couch. This Volk is the most in shape, shredded Volk I've ever seen. While he might be a little washed, and I'm sure it's not going to be the prime form we saw in the Yair Rodriguez fight, Max Holloway trilogy, TKZ fight, even the first Islam fight, Volk would have to be like Tony Ferguson, BJ Penn level washed to lose to a fighter like Diego Lopes, who, let's just call it what it is. Diego is not the most technical fighter. Volk's only way to really lose this fight is by getting caught, and I don't even think that will happen. If you look at who Volk's fought, all signs would point towards the fact that he would be able to beat Lopes in every facet of the game. Volk beat Yair Rodriguez, a better striker than Lopes. Beat Max Holloway, a better striker than Lopes. Jose Aldo, better striker than Lopes. Chad Mendes, similar striker to Lopes. But all those guys are either at Lopez's level or above it. And then we can say, well, what about Lopez's grappling pedigree? It's BJJ. Volk fought Islam Makhachev, the best grappler in the UFC, and couldn't even get submitted by him. Also, he fought a prime Brian Ortega, who had a deep submission on him, and he still couldn't even finish Volk. So, Volk's fought better strikers and was able to beat them. He's fought better grapplers and was able to beat them pretty handily. Wrestlers, Diego Lopes, no one even really argues that his wrestling's any good. It's really not. He gets taken out all the time. We'll get into that too here soon. But he's fought better submission artists and strikers, which are 2 of Diego Lopez's biggest strengths. If Volk's beating someone like Max Holloway, what makes you think someone like Lopes can outstrike him? Or are you going to sit here and argue with me that Lopes has similar striking to Ilia Topuria, in which you just be delusional? Even if you just look at the level of competition Volk has gone against, he's more than ready for a fight with someone like Diego Lopes. And now we can look at Diego Lopes. Brian Ortega, he looked amazing in that fight, but he slowed down in the 3rd round, even a little in the 2nd. Dan Ige on short notice, and Lopes kind of slowed down in the 2nd and 3rd rounds and dropped the 3rd round to Ige, which really isn't a good look. Ige also has a 10th of the wrestling and the striking and the cardio that Volk has. Sadiq Youssef, good performance. Pat Sabatini, good performance. Again, got him out of there early. Wait, what's this? Joe Anderson Brito. Joe Anderson Brito took him down 3 times. Is Joe Anderson Brito not the guy that just got ragdolled by Pat Sabatini and had nothing for him on the ground? You're telling me that guy's taken down Lopes 3 times? Interesting. So if Joe Anderson Brito's taken down Lopes 3 times, what exactly do you think Volk's going to do? So first of all, not only can Volk outstrike Lopes on the feet, and he's a much better technical striker, but even if he doesn't want to risk it, the takedowns are still going to be there for him. And you mean to tell me that Lopes is going to be more dangerous off his back than people that Volk's already fought, like Makhachev and Ortega? Even Yair Rodriguez is good on his back. Volk's negated all of them. Volk wasn't even in his prime form the Brian Ortega fight. Volk's even gotten better since. I'd argue that Volk's grappling is better now than it was before. The only thing I'd say that might have dipped off is his speed and durability, but his striking technique and his grappling are better than ever before. So maybe Diego Lopes does tag Volk on the feet 1 or 2 times, but then Volk's just going to go to the grappling and control him. Volk is going to bully him, dude. Like, I'm talking 10-8s or a TKO finish. If it gets to that 3rd round or anywhere past that, Volk is getting straight 10-8s or he's just going to TKO him. Lopes cannot compete with Volk's pace and pressure. Look at Volk's strikes. Volk averages 6 significant strikes a minute and absorbs 3. He has, I think, the biggest significant strike differential in the UFC. And then you look at someone like Lopes. Lopes lands 2 less strikes than Volk per minute and gets hit with an additional strike. So he hits less than Volk and gets hit way more than Volk. Then we can look at the takedown defense. Volk, if for whatever reason Lopes wants to take it there, no problem for Volk. If you're defending Makhachev's takedowns, Lopes, no problem. Lopez's takedown defense, 53. Every other takedown he can defend. Volk's not just the average run-of-the-mill UFC prospect. He's a cemented champion, probably top 5, top 10 greatest fighters of all time. So if he wants to take you down, he's going to be taking you down. I can guarantee you that. He was able to scramble with Makhachev. Promise. He'll be able to control Lopes on the ground. So really, how do I see this fight going? I think the first round, that's going to be Volk's hardest round. Lopes comes out hot. He's going to be throwing some heat. But I think Volk's going to go to that takedown in the first round, evade the danger, and make it to the second. Second round, Lopes isn't coming out as hot. Volk starts tagging him up. Maybe Lopes still throws some heat. Volk takes him down to be safe. That's the end of the second. Third round, same thing, but Lopes is even slower and he's waning even more. From that point on, bro, Volk's just going to maul him. Like, his chin's not going to be as bad as people think, I promise you. Volk's never even had like an amazing chin. That shot that Ilia Topuria knocked him out with would have knocked out anyone on the UFC roster. You just got to think about it like that. It's not because Volk has a bad chin, it's because Ilia has so much power. Ilia was able to knock out Max Holloway, who has the best chin, one of the best chins in UFC history. John Jones actually has the best chin because he's at the heavier weight classes, taking bigger shots and still never been dropped. But anyways, the shots that Ilia Topuria throws would knock out anyone. It doesn't mean you have a bad chin. In fact, you can have one of the best chins and you still get knocked out. So is Volk's chin really going to be that much of a problem, especially after taking a year off? I really don't think so. Volk is going to play the first round safe, and from there it's just going to be his world. And he's going to drown Diego Lopes with his 5-round championship experience. That's how I see the fight going. So my official pick, I'm going with Alexander Volkanovski by a late TKO or decision. And next we got the co-main event. This one is a very, very, very hard fight to read. I've been going back and forth. You know, Michael Chandler, more aggressive than Paddy Pimblett, stronger than Paddy Pimblett, better wrestler, I'd say. Striking is way better for Chandler, but Chandler's chin's really the X factor here. Paddy doesn't have crazy power, but he does have the ability to land good shots, flush shots. And Mikey Chinny Chin Chandler can't really take those that much anymore. You see here, Michael Chandler's 38 years of age. He hasn't necessarily been doing hot as of late. Only fighters he's beaten in the UFC are Dan Hooker in a dry spell and Wash Tony Ferguson, who actually dropped him. And while I did have good competitive fights with Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira in the first fight, Justin Gaethje, I just feel like Chandler always gets hurt at least once in his fights. And don't get me wrong, I think Prime Chandler smokes Pimblett, but it's just such a hard read because Pimblett's striking is way worse than Chandler's. But Chandler at the same time also doesn't throw anything too clean. He's always throwing looping shots. And to be honest, as much as I hate to say it, Paddy has a real good chin. I don't think Chandler's going to really be able to hurt him on the feet. And the more I've thought about this fight, it's kind of like Paddy's no slouch on the ground, right? This is going to sound dumb. I don't care. I'd argue that Paddy's jiu-jitsu is on a similar level to Oliveira's jiu-jitsu in terms of danger. That's what I believe. Paddy's doing hot right now. He's coming off 2 of the best performances in his career. Yes, he beat Ferguson, but it was 10 times more dominant than the fight Chandler had with Ferguson. And then his Bobby Green win. He didn't just knock Bobby Green out. He submitted Bobby Green. Bobby Green doesn't really get submitted, and Paddy was able to pull it off on him. The one thing I will say is it's a 5-round fight, which both these guys kind of come out hot in the first round, and both of them don't have the best cardio, but we saw Chandler pick up Oliveira twice while on his back and dump him in the waning seconds of the 5th round, and Chandler even rallied in that 5th round and hurt Oliveira with some illegal blows to the back of the head. But Chandler, I'd argue that Chandler has the better cardio, and he could be explosive more so than Paddy throughout the duration of a 5-round fight. I think Paddy really slowed down in that Jared Gordon fight, but then again, Paddy looks in much better shape, and I don't really think he ballooned up like he usually does. between his Bobby Green fight and this fight. But so I'm looking at the age, 37, the damage Michael has taken, his chin, his lack of wrestling defense and grappling defense he showed in his last fight, just getting controlled the whole time. And Paddy does have some good like judo throws or whatever. I was really riding high on Michael Chandler this whole time, but I think I'm switching my pick to Paddy Pimblett. I just think momentum's such a huge factor in this game. You know, he's a much fresher guy. I really want Chandler to get it done because I'm one of the few people that actually like Michael Chandler. I'm a Michael Chandler fan, but I think Paddy's going to get it done. Next, we got Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull. This is the easiest pick of the century. I don't know who's a favorite. I'd assume Yair, but I'll give you this. Every fighter in recent years in the UFC that has beaten Yair Rodriguez has done so through utilizing their grappling or threat of the grappling. Think of the Alexander Volkanovski fight. Volkanovski took him down and TKO'd him. Yeah, he rocked him on the feet, but Volk was also threatening the takedown. And it's a whole different aspect when there's that threat of the takedown. Think of the Max Holloway fight. Max Holloway had to take Yair Rodriguez down 2 secure rounds. And then obviously Brian Ortega had to take him down to get the submission. But that was after Yair Rodriguez dropped him twice. First person to ever drop Brian Ortega. Iron Chin Ortega. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've watched every Patricio Pitbull fight, but I'll tell you this. I know Patricio Pitbull's a striker. I know Patricio Pitbull has like a Michael Chandler style. Patricio Pitbull is 37 years of age, and he's going against a prime Yair Rodriguez, one of the best strikers who's never really been outstruck in recent years. And that's how Patricio Pitbull plans to fight him. And even if he does take Yair down, Yair can still be very dangerous off his back. He just doesn't have necessarily good takedown defense. But this fight is going to be a stand-up fight. And I'm going to tell you right now, no one is beating Yair Rodriguez on the feet in a stand-up fight. I'm going to go with Yair Rodriguez. You know, Patricio's old. Lock in Yair Rodriguez. And here we got the people's main event. Bryce Mitchell coming off a pretty dominant victory over Cron Gracie. And Gene Silva coming off a knockout, beautiful knockout of Melsik Bagdasaryan. Is that his name? I don't know. I think this fight could go one of two ways. I think it could look like the Charles Jourdain fight, or at least the earlier portion where Gene Silva was getting controlled. Or it could look like the Josh Emmett fight where Bryce Mitchell just gets chinned. But I'll tell you what, I think after Bryce just dominated one of the best jiu-jitsu artists in the UFC, pure jiu-jitsu artist, not saying his jiu-jitsu in the UFC is anything crazy, but Bryce just out-grappled a Gracie. So not only is his grappling now better than it's ever been before, but he's going to have that confidence in his grappling there with him the whole time. And we have seen Gene Silva controlled on the ground. And yeah, his takedown defense is pretty good, but who's he defending takedowns against? Like some guys fresh off The Ultimate Fighter. Gene Silva is not defending takedowns against elite competition. Charles Jourdain was able to take him down and control him for a good amount. And if someone like Charles Jourdain's controlling you, what do you think Bryce Mitchell's going to do, who's the best grappler in recent time he's gone against? But then again, Gene Silva is just like so good and his power is so... This one's such a hard one to call too, dude. They're both... age isn't a factor here, which is always something I like to look at. And then next I like to look at their recent performances, and they're both coming off wins. Then you got to look at styles, and the fact of the matter is Bryce Mitchell is a crafty striker who has amazing grappling, and Gene Silva is a devastating knockout artist with decent takedown defense. So obviously we know both their game plans. Gene Silva's game plan is going to be to defend the takedowns and knock out Mitchell, and Mitchell's going to want to get a submission. But dude, I think Mitchell's so honed in on this fight. And who has Mitchell been knocked out by though? Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria, two of the biggest power punchers in featherweight history. And honestly, Gene Silva might be the third biggest power puncher. But God, here I'm gonna tell you this. This fight, if it goes 3 rounds, it's likely gonna be a decision. Yeah, obviously. But if it goes 3 rounds, I feel like it'll likely be a Bryce Mitchell win because he'd be able to take him down, control him, and take away the X factor of Gene Silva, which is the power. But I don't know if Bryce Mitchell can get past Gene Silva's hands to get to that takedown. That's just going to be such a hard thing to do. We've seen Bryce Mitchell knock down Edson Barboza, who on the feet probably just as technical as Gene Silva. Obviously, it's not a prime Barboza, but I'm just saying Bryce Mitchell was not necessarily a slouch on the feet. He was making Ilia Topuria miss, and you got to remember he was on short notice for the Josh Emmett fight, which I guess this fight also is short notice. Oh my gosh, bro. This fight's an impossible. Screw it. I'm going with Thug Nasty. I'm going with a country boy to beat the hot surging prospect Gene Silva. I'm going to go by Dude, Bryce Mitchell by submission. This isn't even like a pick with my brain. I'm picking this with my heart, which I never say to do, but I don't care, bro. This is going to make the fight way more interesting to watch. I'm saying Bryce Mitchell by submission. Do not listen to this advice. Nikita Krylov versus Dom Reyes. Both them coming off win streaks. Dom Reyes coming off 2. Nikita Krylov coming off a 3-win streak, I think. Overall, Nikita Krylov's the more well-rounded fighter. Yes, Dominic Reyes went life and death with John Jones. Gosh, bro. Krylov's been sitting out so long. Reyes has been doing hot. Krylov isn't necessarily the biggest knockout artist, which is Reyes' weakness. Reyes isn't going to be getting finished by a grappler. Reyes defended Jones grappling beautifully, and Nikita Krylov isn't half the finish that Jones is. And you know what? Dominic Reyes is a dog. Dominic Reyes has probably the better technical striker than Krylov. Krylov's been sitting out for a while. Dominic Reyes has crazy momentum behind him. I'm going to go Dominic Reyes by TKO in round 3. He's going to continue his win streak. Next, we got Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. I think this is a pretty easy pick for Sean Woodson. He should be a bigger favorite than he is. He's got amazing power in his hands. Dan Ige always has that option, the nuclear option, but Sean Woodson, he's going to be able to defend any takedowns, I believe. And he'll probably be able to chin Dan Ige or just like out damage him. But I'm going to go with Sean Woodson, probably by KO or decision. Next, we got Yan Xiaonan versus Virna Jandiroba. I don't know these gals too well, to be honest. I'm going to go off what I know. I'm not going to explain it. I'm going Yan Xiaonan. She almost submitted Wei Li Zhang, and that's good enough for me. Next, we got Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. The odds pretty much tell you the story of this fight. Chase Hooper's surging hot right now. He's looked better than ever before. His striking's amazing. His grappling is even better. He's going to beat Jim Miller, probably by submission or a knockout. Honestly, I could see a knockout. That's what I'd do if I was Chase Hooper. Don't even bother with the feet. You just stick to the knockout. Jim Miller is so old. His chin's not going to be fully there. I think Chase Hooper's going to win via knockout. Next, we got Darren, the Damage Elkins versus Julian Erosa. I'm going to go Erosa. Darren Elkins is 40 years of age, and Erosa's 35. These guys are featherweight fighters. So every year past 35 makes a huge difference. I'm going to go with Julian Erosa by, should I say knockout? I'll say knockout. Cedric Dumas versus Alexionchik. I don't think Cedric Dumas is going to be able to submit Alexeychik though. And I just think Alexeychik's the more active striker. Neither of them are old or washed. So I'm going to go Michael Alexeychik. Sumandarji versus Mitch Rapuso. Sumandarji is an absolute warrior. Mitch Rapuso's no slouch either. But I'm going to go with Sumandarji. I think Sumandarji has much more experience. He's going to be able to tune him up on the feet. And I think he's going to take him to a decision. I'm going Trayshawn Gore via live leak guillotine. I think he's going to pick up Mark Tululio, twist him around in the air with that guillotine, and finish him there. So I'm going to go Trayshawn Gore by however he wants. No, I'm just kidding. I got Marco Tululio, though, by probably knockout. And then I got Nora Connolly. But those are my picks for UFC 314, and my exact reasoning as to why Alexander Volkanovski has a 0% chance of losing to Diego Lopes. If you agree or disagree with any of my picks or takes, let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you soon.